Welcome to the OtherWorldsGG Community Cast. I am Table for Two, and I am joined today by Mellified. How you doing?
I have to unmute, as it turns out. I know how to work. I know how to work our technology. I swear.
Welcome, buddy. How you doing?
I am doing delightful. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I almost forgot. This is episode number 18. We're getting pretty close to the big 2-0.
So we can legally drink now. What does this mean for the show now that we're 18?
Canada. We can legally drink in Canada, I guess, is what it is.
Oh.
I guess today marks the day that we can buy cigarettes and porn.
Yeah.
Wasn't that always
it's gonna be that
thing?
kind of show, huh?
I don't know. It might be. Don't do drugs, kids. But yeah, we are sans Alien Pickle for the moment. But that's okay. There's still plenty of news to talk about. Actually, the first bit of news I kind of wanted to get out of the way was the 2021 World Video Game Hall of Fame inductees that happened this year. It's interesting. They did a video. The Strong Museum is the one who handles the Video Game Hall of Fame stuff, and their criteria for what they think about when trying to induct a game into the Hall of Fame is quite interesting. They talk about influence. They talk about like how it does globally. They talk about how it does in culture and so on and so forth. And they went through the video that they put out for this year. They go back and they show all the different years inductees, and they actually include like source documents and all the kinds of stuff for like preserving the game and stuff, which is great. I think that's awesome that they do that. But I also know that just feels very selective because they are selecting only a few games a year to induct into that. And I feel like as the years go on, preserving these things can kind of become harder and harder. I wish they would do more in terms of like preservation work, not just like, hey, Hall of Fame work. Would be
Yeah, it's
nice
sort of
too.
Indirect, right? They're bringing attention to these old games, but they're not directly trying to preserve them or anything.
Right. So this year they inducted Animal Crossing, specifically. I think they're specifically talking about the Animal Crossing series as a whole, rather than just like the new one. I think because they specifically talk about the one that came out on the GameCube is the one that they focused the most time on.
Interesting.
But they did
for Switch, like
right.
Okay.
Well, but they did talk about the Switch one though. They talked about the new one for the Switch is, and it's keeping in line with the old one, because they talk about how the game is influenced by the seasons and it syncs up with the time clock on the console and blah blah blah. So that was kind of interesting. The other one that I actually thought was rather funny, I was rather amused by this induction this year, was Microsoft Flight Simulator, and again. They did it I feel like they did it from the perspective of the series rather than just a specific game, because they actually went back all the way and talked about like the original flight sim stuff for the Apple II and how Microsoft like licensed that, and then eventually it became Microsoft Flight Simulator, and then of course we had the big release last year in 2020 for the newest Microsoft Flight Sim. So
which is coming to Xbox this summer too.
Which is interesting that's happening, considering this game is filled with so much simulation type stuff that you can actually build out a full simulator. And it's funny that you're going to be able to do that kind of gameplay, not necessarily with a simulator kit, but like gameplay, at least you can play it on the Xbox.
Yeah, I mean, I have a pretty decent flight stick setup for more combat simulation, but I was able to use that with the latest flight sim, Microsoft Flight Simulator. I don't know how you would even come close to mapping all the different controls. I mean, think about the mental picture we have of like a cockpit, and there's switches and knobs and dials.
Right.
Being a simulator, it tries to sort of replicate all of that. So how you're going to do that on a controller, I have no idea.
Yeah, and to be fair, you can do that on a controller in the simplest terms if you're just trying to talk about like acceleration, deceleration, maybe some flaps, and then your directional controls. You can do the very basics on a controller, but you're not going to get all of like the fine tuning or, you know, any of the real Sims like type stuff. So that's okay. It's still a fun thing to play despite all that stuff. The next one that they inducted this year, I was actually really excited about, and which is Starcraft. And they talked about with Starcraft being what really kind of launched esports as we know it. I don't think we would have esports today without StarCraft because, and it was interesting because like you know esports, you know back so you want to talk about like Western civilization versus like you know Asian cultures and all that other stuff. It's interesting that like the Asian cultures took on to esports at a very early stage in the gaming industry and like the world of video gaming like way before anybody else. And I think that's really cool that they did that because I mean, like you can go back and watch these StarCraft matches from like, you know, 1998, you know, 1999, like it's pretty wild. So, and they used to broadcast that and I'm pretty sure they still do. They broadcast that stuff on TV in like South Korea and such like that. So,
Yeah,
it's
South Korea, at least in the late 90s, had not just one, but two 24-hour Starcraft channels on TV.
yeah, that's pretty nuts. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
also pretty awesome. So, you know, so the influence of that just really, you know, from that, you know, we got esports today. So it's definitely influential, not just, you know, for its cool campaign and story and music and gameplay, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's just influence on you know cultures around the world. So that's a prime example in my mind of what gets inducted, I guess, into the Hall of Fame there. And
Yeah.
then and then the last one that they inducted, which was kind of another silly one to me, but it's pretty cool too, is Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. Um, I'm more familiar with Carmen Sandiego in the sense of the old kids game show. Uh, you know that was on TV back in the 90s. So I'm familiar with that as a Carmen Sandiego more than the actual game itself. So, but yeah, pretty cool stuff, man. Um, Exciting times as all around. There's been a number of games announced or releases coming out that are pretty exciting. I'm really looking forward to the City of Ghosts DLC for Cloudpunk. I really enjoyed Cloudpunk when it came out. I have yet to finish it, but the fact that they also included a first person mode in the game was such uh it changed the dynamic of that game. It's crazy because it was cool and fun to play from kind of like a almost like a scroller or like a top down third person, but to take the action of the art style of that game into first person was really fantastic. Like you got to really see all the detail of all the city, even though it's kind of a blocky pixel city. It's very cool to see up close. Did you play Cloudpunk?
I have never played it. I've heard really good things, and especially the first person mode, but I've never gotten around to it. So yeah, it's on my list to check out at some point.
Yeah, add it to your backlog.
Yeah, seriously. We there was a conversation we had on the Discord probably a week and a half ago where you were talking about needing a tool to manage your backlog, and do you remember what my response was?
Steam, yeah.
Yeah, I just
That's
sent you
right.
the link to Steam. Like, oh, this works.
Yeah,
It's
that's
pretty much
right.
that's my backlog is the entire Steam catalog. Just
All like
someday.
all 30,000 plus games that they have on
Mm-hmm.
their catalog.
Yep,
Yeah.
someday. Yeah.
I don't know.
So,
Some of them
oh
I might
man.
avoid though.
Well, maybe so, but still, like, as in terms of tracking your backlog, it's just like, oh my god, I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah.
Um, well, that's the shame of it. That's the blessing and the curse, right? Of having a thriving games industry is our time. I think I mentioned this before. Netflix talks about their competition isn't Hulu. It's not all the other streaming services. It's video games, it's movies, at the theater when we still had theaters. It's all the other things you could do with your time. Because if you're going to sit down and watch TV, Netflix feels pretty good that they can get your attention because they have great shows. But getting you in front of the TV to sit down and watch something is the hard part for them, which I found really interesting. Well, sure. Was there? I mean, Carmen Sandiego. I mean, it was a classic for me growing up in a little bit earlier than you in the '80s, and the game was like a staple because it was educational, right? So,
right.
Video games weren't entirely evil in the devil's work. If you had educational stuff on there, I guess.
Well, I definitely remember the educational games growing up for sure, because there was quite a few of them. I mean, I guess one right off the top of the head that probably a lot of people from my generation and years would remember would be like Math Blaster, or something like that. It's very,
yep,
no,
that's true.
Very well known. It's kind of like what was it? What was that typing game that they came out with that was like you're shooting zombies or whatever? It was like the Typing Dead or whatever it was. Yeah, that was crazy. Very cool. What else we got on this on the release schedule coming up? There's a lot of re-releases, but there's also some new stuff. Are. But
yeah. Let's see where to begin. An old GameCube game I remember very fondly. The series Batten Kaitos is getting we think they're either going to do a re-release or maybe a new game. Bandai Namco just registered some new trademarks for that. That was kind of interesting. Resident Evil 4 VR is going to be launching later this year as a Quest 2 exclusive. They've reworked it quite a bit apparently for VR, so be interesting to see how that plays.
That is a strange place to find a Resident Evil exclusive.
Yeah, I think they're doing it, as we're going to talk about in a little bit, because the Quest is so dominant in the industry right now. They can, that's their best bet. And
we'll get to that more, but yeah.
Just burning through some other, quick releases. Earth Defense Force 2017 and the sequel Earth Defense Force 2 are going to be coming to Nintendo Switch. The original EDF 2017 was actually a 360 game, of all things. Xbox game? Xbox 360. I think it was Xbox 360. Anyway, really a fun, silly, goofy, over-the-top, like B-movie monsters, giant insects and giant robots and stuff that you have to fight. But
EDF.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So looking forward to that. Midnight Club Los Angeles Complete Edition was relisted on the Xbox Marketplace. It was pulled down due to some licensing issue. It seems like Rockstar got that figured out. A lot of people I know were pretty excited about that. And then I think all the rest of these are kind of updates and new features and stuff. So we can jump over to something else.
Well, yeah, the one that we talked about pre-show specifically was the Halo Infinite support for crossplay and cross-save on PC and Xbox, which is awesome that Microsoft is doing that, like, right out the gate. With almost all of their new stuff, it seems like it's going crossplay or Game Pass, and or
at least very quickly after release. Yeah,
or very quickly after, and we can kind of jump into the Xbox. We're kind of shameless, in our devotion to Microsoft, but we have a whole section just for some Microsoft information here, but. It looks like Game Pass has reportedly surpassed 23 million subscribers, which is awesome. We actually posted on our deals channel the other day. Mellified posted there was a deal where you could get a year of EA Play on Xbox that would convert to Game Pass, and it was like $80 for like a year of this, and so you're essentially getting Game Pass Ultimate, by the way, for a year for $80, which standard, if you were to pay the $15 a month for that, it's like $100 and something crazy
$180. So yeah, you were saving
Yeah,
$100
yeah.
versus list price, because it's 15 a month for a year.
And
Yeah,
mind
that was a
you,
great deal.
you can stack game like your subscription up with Microsoft up to I think was it 35 or 36 months or something like that.
Yeah,
Like
3 years.
3 years basically, you can stack up. So I already had a year left, and I went ahead and stacked up for another 2. So that way I just don't have to think about my subscription for the next 3 years. So, yeah, that's another thing that we like to try and do is post deals on our Discord, so that if you guys are interested in trying to get on the latest deal, or if you have a deal that you've seen that you want to share, I mean, we've got a channel on our Discord just for that.
Absolutely. Well, and we get all the free games posted up there, or try to any of the really good deals like that. Sadly, the console, hey, you can go buy an Xbox or a PlayStation. Those things go so quick that they don't last long enough to post on the Discord. But just about everything else.
Yeah, for a while there we were trying to, but of course with the chip shortage and all that other stuff, it's making getting some of these newer consoles a little harder. It's not that they're bad or anything like that. It's just like you just can't get a hold of them because they're so hard to manufacture. Yep. The demand is so high. But
they sell out like hotcakes. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. Also, Microsoft is bringing an FPS boost support for up to 97 of the games on the Xbox Series X and S, which if you're lucky enough to find yourself getting one, that's a really cool feature. And we have a few games here that we've talked about in our updates section that's actually going to be getting some of that upgrade stuff, which I think like Jedi Fallen Order is getting a PS5 and Xbox Series X upgrade, stuff like that. So pretty fantastic.
Well, is my Far Cry games. That's getting a 60 FPS boost on Series X and S.
Which ones were those again?
Far Cry 5.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And
nice.
Wasteland 3, which came out fairly recently. That's a Microsoft published game, is also 60. Deus Ex Mankind Divided, which was a really great shooter / kind of define your own path through the level, is getting a 60 FPS boost as well. Alien Isolation, Assassin's Creed Unity, oddly, which was certainly not very successful when it came out, but really interesting. So lots of good free updates. I can't beat that.
Yeah, well, speaking of free updates, did you hear about that Doom Eternal shit?
Yeah, well, this is a little strange. So Doom Eternal came out, and they made kind of a big deal about, hey, we're not gonna do all kinds of microtransactions. Yet now I can go and buy skins for the game. And so it kind of seems like they went back on their word there. I think my understanding of the situation is that they what happened here is they did seasonal. They have a season pass type system, and so people want the stuff, the cosmetics from that season 1 gameplay, but they're not available now because the season's over. And so that's what they've released as paid DLC. I personally, it doesn't bother me. Like, it's cosmetics, you don't buy it, if you don't want it. But I certainly think it's weird that they said that they were not going to do this, and then they turned around and did it. Like, this seems like something you could have foreseen as being part of your business plan.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
There's a lot of weird shenanigans going on with that. It's interesting though. Speaking of shenanigans, this whole like Epic versus Apple court case stuff that's going on.
Yeah. For those who don't know, Epic engineered a lawsuit, I think it's fair to say. And whether you agree or disagree with their central point, which is that they don't like paying Apple a percentage of all of the microtransactions Apple's platform, and Google, by the way. It's always Epic versus Apple, but Epic actually sued Google as well for the exact same thing at the same time. But Epic had all the marketing, all of the lawsuits ready to go. They pushed an update to the app stores that they knew was breaking the rules, so they could get pulled down, so they could turn around and immediately sue. So they knew what they were doing when they did this, but ultimately, as a result of this lawsuit, which is ongoing, we are getting all sorts of dirt on the inside of the game industry and how things have worked, and because it's all being subpoenaed as part of this case. And it's really been interesting. We've got some pretty significant revelations coming out of this. One that I thought was really interesting. Almost half of Fortnite's revenue comes from PlayStation. I think just because the PlayStation 4 is such a popular system, that's where a lot of people are playing it. And it's also kind of tends to be the one that I think a lot of people play Fortnite on for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think early on, I was going to say, I think early on from a console perspective, that's where it was the strongest for sure. Mm-hmm. That and PC. So
yeah, well, and in contrast to that, on iOS, they're only making 7% of their revenue. So it seems weird they sued Apple, who's 7%, instead of suing PlayStation, who's 50%.
Right.
Which just undermines their credibility with the court and with, frankly, with the public about this stuff. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out, because ultimately, I can't imagine how they're going to justify, the court is going to justify penalizing Apple, because Apple built a store. You buy a phone, like, you don't have to buy an Apple phone. You can go over to Google. Well, if Google's charging the same amount, maybe they can say it's collusion or a duopoly or something. But it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, well, the fun thing about this too, which is, take it for a grain of salt, because apparently this is like content from the court cases where these documents came out, but the section for Microsoft was like, for one player titles, their internal feedback from Microsoft is their PC Game Pass leader is against what we're doing. Yeah, they are effectively bidding against us for content. Phil is meeting with Gabe at Valve occasionally. Like, you want to roll that back? What? Like, so to talk about what though? Like that doesn't make sense to me. What he would be talking to Gabe about? I mean, Microsoft has already put themselves out there on Steam. Like, I mean, they've got. I mean, never in my lifetime I would have ever thought I would be able to buy Halo on Steam, and yet here we are. Yeah. So.
Yeah, what universe did we end up in? It's interesting. I really think this is Microsoft's.
Sorry, I was gonna say the same universe that gave us the 2020 pandemic. Like, yeah, you get this, but you also have to get this. It's like, well, shit. Yes.
It reminds me of a meme, Doctor Who talking to one of his companions. I'm going to take you back to the year 2022, and the companion says, well, I'm from 2019, why don't you take me back then? He goes, no, I'm taking you to 2022.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it's been a rough couple years, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think ultimately Microsoft cares about, they've realized that pissing off gamers is not a good business model, right? They did it a couple times now, and it's failed spectacularly for them. People have long memories, and they've turned that around. I think, it's showing in their profits. Their revenues rose $15 billion over the last 12 months. People are taking notice of what they're doing. Game Pass, as we talked about earlier, is doing really well. So I think it's paying off for them, to the point where they're actually kind of, competing with Valve a little bit. As you said, it's weird that they're friends on some level, or that at least Microsoft's publishing things on Steam. But it came out recently. Microsoft announced that they are dropping their cut on games published on the PC side to 12%. The industry standard has been 30 for a long time. Epic came out at 12 when they opened their store as a bid to attract developers. Um, and the rumor is, at least, that Microsoft is also talking about reducing their cut on Xbox game sales, which would be sort of unheard of, frankly, for a console maker to drop their back end price. Now, it's a little bit interesting. Like, every time you do a patch on Xbox, that patch has to be certified by Microsoft. And guess what? You pay testing fees to put your patch in for test. And if you fail, then the money you paid is still spent. Like, if when you fix the patch, you have to resubmit it for certification, which means you have to pay again. So Microsoft makes a ton of money off of stuff like that. But cutting from 30 to 12% on the PC side, I don't know, how much of a cut they do on Xbox. Sure seems like a great thing for developers, and even if it doesn't necessarily result in our price dropping in for some of these games, the fact that the developers are making more money is a really good thing for the long-term health of the industry.
Right, and you couple that on with their ID at Azure stuff that they're going to be working on putting out. Like, it's going to encourage more people to want to come to that platform and say, hey, like, Microsoft is playing real nice with people, encouraging them to use their platforms, and we get a lot of money for it and stuff. So, I mean, it just seems very positive all around, in my opinion. So,
yeah. We have some darker topics, some news that's going to make me very angry. Before we get to that, do you maybe want to talk about some of the interesting stats that came out about Steam VR and Oculus?
Yeah, so we alluded to this earlier about Oculus. I mean, say what you will about the fact that Facebook owns this, and it's really unfortunate that they do, but the fact that they do also means that Oculus gets a lot of money in development and being able to do this. And so by doing so, they've been able to put out their Oculus Quest 2, for example. The Quest 2 has been selling really well. As a matter of fact, it's selling so well that you can get an Oculus without Facebook now for an extra $400. Now, I don't know if anybody wants to pay that, because it's already at like $300. Who wants to pay like $700 or $800 for a VR kit? Unless, you really want to. At that point, if you're going to spend $800 something, you might as well go for some higher end.
Index. Yeah.
Right. Do something that's going to be like a room scale piece of equipment.
Mm.
But an Oculus. Go ahead.
The one thing that I should add, well, sorry to interrupt you, but the one thing I should add there is it's not just an extra $400. There's also a $150 support contract,
right,
annually, that you have to pay on top of that. So that's a pretty pricey, because it's meant for business, to be clear. It's
So for all of its whatever you want to call it, I guess it's pretty interesting. So moving on from there, though, Oculus headsets are now used by 60% of the VR players on Steam. Hot dang. Because the Quest 2 is doing some really cool things, where not only is it its own ecosystem, right, with the Oculus ecosystem, the Oculus Store, first party stuff that you can get right there just installed on your Oculus. You can hook the darn thing up to your PC and play any VR supported stuff on your PC as well. Of course, if you have a supported graphics card. But the point being is it's such a great entry into the market that people are using them for VR stuff on Steam all the time. So 60%.
Yeah, well, and with Air AirLink is the branding for the Oculus native PC, wireless PC support now. Clearly this to me is the future. Like, we will not have cables connecting us to our PC while we're in VR.
And let me add to that if you have good Wi-Fi at home, this AirLink stuff is shockingly good. Like, I'm playing VR games from my PC to my Oculus over the Wi-Fi, and I don't have to be tethered. Yeah, and it just works. It works shockingly well, actually. So
it worked great with Virtual Desktop. I think AirLink is Oculus's, first-party solution that's still in some ways better, but still has more rough edges. But it just came out. Like, the Virtual Desktop's been out for a while, and I think Virtual Desktop is going to continue to offer things that Oculus won't. Particularly around things like making Steam games better, because Oculus doesn't want you to play Steam games; they want you to buy it from them. But all that said, like, I mean, we're in such a fantastic time technology-wise for this.
Yeah, and now that I'm at my place, I'm actually looking forward to being able to play more VR stuff, because while I do have my Oculus Quest where I can play some stuff, in the headset, now that I've got my rig up at my new place, I can get back into all of the grand VR stuff that I have on my PC, which I really want to get back into Half-Life Alyx and start actually. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start back over from the beginning and just play through that sucker. And I'm really excited and looking forward to doing so.
Yeah, well, I was telling you, my son Kitten Sushi and I were trying to play the co-op of Warhammer 40k Battle Sisters, which is an Oculus Quest exclusive VR game that has like a co-op horde mode. And we failed miserably because we didn't know the controls, so we got overrun by bad guys before we could buy our guns. But that aside, like, the neat thing about VR is the games are evolving so fast, and it is such an interesting thing to be a part of and see ideas that one developer has get incorporated and improved and expanded by somebody else, and he just keeps building and building. And I feel like you go from a game like Pistol Whipped, which is you are John Wick going through a level kind of on rails. Well, I guess you move forward, but you can move side to side, you can hide, you can duck, you can dodge. And that's like one experience and it's set to music. It's fantastic. And yet you also have Beat Saber, which is the very traditional, sort of drumming. It was originally a drumming game. But you have these lightsabers and you're smashing notes and stuff. And those are two wildly different takes on a music, what we think of as a music game. But Pistol Whip's also an action game. And so that compares. It's just this neat mashup of ideas. I'm really excited to see where it all goes.
I actually just saw another VR game that what was it? I think either yesterday or today that got me really excited, which was Demio.
Yep.
That looks awesome. Which isn't, it's basically like an RPG dungeon crawler card game thing. So imagine, if you will, you're actually in a VR like room playing a tabletop like D&D game, but that's also like a card game. But everything's got like, everything that you do has real effects. So like if you're casting spells, you actually see it animates it all, and it animates all the dice rolls, and all the characters on the board are animated, and it looks just very engaging and entertaining, and it's co-op, and so I'm really looking forward to checking that out. I'd like to try and see if there's like a demo of it somewhere, but for $30, it's not bad. So
and it's native on the Quest, so you can play just straight on the Quest, and there is a PC VR version. So
yeah, there's a Steam version, which I'm more inclined to get the Steam version because that gives me the opportunity to be able to play with more people. So that's kind of my philosophy behind
Double
that.
check, because at least I haven't looked, to be fair, but a lot of VR games are cross-platform.
And
Because
that may be true. That might be true.
the multiplayer community is so small for VR, they kind of have to be to have any chance of getting, people playing, unfortunately.
Well, I know that's not the case with Beat Saber.
Beat Saber is one of the exceptions for sure. But I know there's a Reddit in the I think the Road to VR Reddit or one of those. There's a nice wiki that kind of outlines all the different crossplay. I'll find the link and post it in our Discord because I found
Nice.
that really helpful in the past.
Well, that's some exciting stuff. What else we got here?
Oh my gosh. Okay, I got to talk about Activision for a minute.
Do it.
Oh, Jesus.
Get it off your chest. Get it off your chest.
So, as if it weren't bad enough that I think last news show, we talked about Activision Blizzard laying off another 100+ people after having record profits. But it was announced that Bobby Kotick was going to take home an extra $230 million in bonuses because the company was doing so well, as they're laying off all these people. Apparently the bad press finally caught with everyone involved, and Bobby Kotick, it was announced, is taking a 50% pay cut, but he's still going to get millions and millions of dollars in bonuses if the company continues to do well. So it doesn't really sound like an actual change. It's just his paycheck week to week maybe is smaller, but his overall earnings are going to be way, way, way up there still. So I executive compensation is like a whole other giant topic that we'll save for our non-existent political show. But I won't get into that. But I will just say it is frustrating to see a company that just seems so disconnected from the reality of their employees versus their senior leaders.
And not just that, though. I mean, they've gone through several large layoffs over the last few years. That now, like, you got they want to hire another 1,000 people for their new project or some new I don't understand this whole massive profits, massive layoffs, but then all of a sudden now we've got to hire all these people. I just miss Blizzard, the old Blizzard, the Blizzard that was so devoted to making games, man. I know it's a rant that we've gone on before, but by gosh, it just makes you miss it, you know?
Well, and Activision has other studios besides the Call of Duties and Blizzard, or at least they did. And one of those was a great little developer called Toys for Bob. The two founders of Toys for Bob are legends in the industry. I remember playing an old game on my Commodore 64 called Mail Order Monsters that they designed that is still ingrained in my brain as one of these super fun game experiences. And you're basically managing a squad of monster gladiators and fighting them in an arena battle and earning money and stuff. But they went on to Crash Bandicoot. They were the brains behind the original and Star Control 2. Star Control 2 is probably one of the greatest games ever made. It was the basis for Mass Effect. If you're not familiar with the history there, Mass Effect, was trying to be a modern reimagining of Star Control. And Toys for Bob came up with the Toys to Life phenomenon. They invented Skylanders. These guys are incredibly creative and passionate and innovative thinkers. And guess what? Activision recently announced that Toys for Bob is going to only be working on Call of Duty games from now on.
Such a waste.
I mean, I can't even articulate how angry this makes me. Vicarious Visions, this happened to Vicarious Visions not too long ago. I worked with one of the founders of Vicarious in the mid 90s. We were both in upstate New York, and he knew some people I was working with at the time. So it's a little bit personal for me as well there, admittedly, but Vicarious Visions were this really solid kind of developer. That if you look on a lot of ports, they were the guys doing the ports. They did a couple of their own games, and like they got like stand at the feet of Blizzard and do what they tell you, which is just it just robs that studio all of its opportunities to be creative, to be innovative. And if you wonder why we're getting sequels and just retread crap in the industry sometimes, it's because companies make decisions like this. They take away the ability for companies to be creative, even teams that have demonstrated incredible creativity, like Toys for Bob. Friggin' Skylanders, like, oh my gosh, granted they ran it into the ground and they overdid it, but what a neat concept. What a fun way to engage with games, to take an action figure and pop it on and see it come to life on the screen. And it like, just so brilliant to come up with something like that. And, now they get to make Call of Duty all day. It just pisses me off.
Yeah, I get it. I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. Well, let's see. Let's try and see if we can't find a few more uplifting. Oh, I don't know if we can. I don't know if
well,
we can.
Got some updates. We got some fun updates. Fall Guys got delayed, unfortunately, so they can add crossplay to Switch and Xbox, which that's a good reason. I would love to be able to play some Fall Guys with all my friends, regardless of their system of choice. Mass Effect Legendary Edition has some details came out about its performance. It's going to go up to 240 hertz on PC, 120 hertz on the newer consoles. If you have I'm sorry, I forget the name. It's performance and something else, fidelity maybe. If you have the performance mode engaged on Xbox One X or Series X, I mean. Super Mario Party got some free online modes. We talked about Halo Infinite getting cross-play, cross-save, which is great. Jedi Fallen Order is going to be getting a free update for the new consoles, as is Subnautica. So, there's some good stuff there.
For sure. Definitely, for sure. Well, the other interesting things, though, that are on the news that we've got here, so Riot Games, right, to record Valorant voice chats, I guess, to combat toxic behavior. I think it should go without saying that Riot has had a lot of issues with just very vocal bad behavior in the past in their games. I think League of Legends is just notorious. Like I never played League of Legends, and mainly because I had always heard horror stories of just dealing with people that were just terrible. Like you just get in there, and this is one of those things where like I've had people tell me, they're like, oh yeah, man, I get in, I love talking on and meeting people, and I hear these stories of how people met others through like playing Halo and stuff like that. I was like, I never turned on my voice chat unless I was playing with people I knew, like in a party. Or in a thing like that. I've always loathed just, the public whatever, because you always have the screaming kid or the person who doesn't mute their stuff. So to me, this just kind of makes me chuckle because one, I would never hear it. And two, it's funny to me that Riot just has these problems consistently with their games. So.
Yeah. And, essentially the plan here is this is a beta. We should be clear about that.
Oh, right.
They haven't actually committed to doing this, but the idea is they're going to record voice chat and then run it through AI recognition. And if there's things that the AI thinks are suspicious, it'll be reviewed by a human. And if you're being, super toxic, you're going to get banned.
And I don't think cursing Tourette's will count. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's part of it, right? Is what are the rules? What's allowed? Right. What's not allowed? Certainly, I think we can agree. Racial slurs are never appropriate and things like that. Yeah. But like, there's a whole big fat gray area in the middle where it's like, yeah, you're kind of a dick, but should you be banned?
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said about cockiness and whatnot, where it's just like. Because those kinds of people are annoying, but like at the same time, Yeah, do I do it? But do I suck at the game? Like, just like maybe I might. Maybe I should get
That'd be
better.
better. Yeah, maybe I
Maybe
should go learn how to play, noob.
yeah, maybe I shouldn't be a scrub. Like I don't know.
Yeah. No, but I mean, that's my issue is like how do you draw
Right.
those lines and make that clear to the player base that this is the line?
Sure.
Um, it'll be interesting to see. On this Outriders is kind of a funny related note. I mean, this is terrible. I would be so mad if this happened to me, but griefers have figured out a way to kick players out of the game, end game missions, before they can get the loot for completing the mission.
Yeah, that would frustrate me.
Yes. Well, it happens once and you'd be mad. If it kept happening, holy smokes, I'd just be done with the game forever. Like, that'd be so frustrating.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like the stuff with like Grand Theft Auto Online, right? With Rockstar, when there was a period of time where things were just so bad with the hackers. It's just like, why am I even bothering playing online when it's just like I can't even do anything that's fun?
So we have one more story that I put in here knowing it was going to make me mad. Maybe you can kick it off so I don't go straight into the rant and explain what's going on, or do you feel like I should explain the Sony crossplay shenanigans?
Well, you might need to explain it, but like Sony's charging for crossplay support to quote unquote protect PSN revenue. I
Yeah.
I'm so I Sony's business practices. Okay, let's table for a second aside the fact that we know that there are really great first party games on Sony and Nintendo. They do have some awesome games, and I'm not going to sit here and trash the stuff that's good. The thing that bugs me so much right now about Sony and Nintendo specifically is their business practices are just like ridiculous. And I don't understand how they keep getting away with it, or keep staying in business because of their business practices. Sony I can understand more than Nintendo. Nintendo just surprises me. Like, how are you guys still here? I guess people love Zelda that much, and I think people love Mario that much, and Animal Crossing that much. I mean, clearly, but man, their business practices are terrible. So break it down. What's going on with the Sony stuff?
So Sony basically says, well, okay, you guys all want us to support crossplay, but we don't want to lose money. So if 85% of your player base is on PS4, but you are earning more revenue from other platforms, you're going to have to pay us up to what we would have made if 85% of the microtransactions went through us. So basically it's a Sony tax for, if for whatever reason people are spending their money off platform, Sony is going to charge the developer and force them to pay the difference back to Sony, which, given that you're paying now twice, is what that effectively means. Because let's say, a ton of players are buying microtransactions on Steam, you're paying Steam for those microtransactions. And then Sony is coming and saying, well, no, you also have to pay us, even though it had nothing to do with us, because we have more of the player base. So this helps understand. This is more information that came out of the Fortnite or Epic Apple Google lawsuit. But this helps me understand, because for a while there, after Fortnite added multi-platform crossplay, Sony was saying, well, yep, we're open for business. Anybody who wants to do crossplay, come talk to us, we'll make it happen. And developers came out and were saying, well, no, that's not true. Like, we've tried to do this, and Sony's not interested. And what the gap, I think, may have been is the business terms, and specifically this, cross-platform revenue sharing that Sony was insisting on, where you have to pay them like you said, I don't understand how they got away with this, other than the fact that players were demanding crossplay, and Sony, this was the price of entry on the Sony platform if you want to do crossplay. And of course, all of this is confidential. You're not allowed to even talk about it as part of your agreement with Sony. So they were able to hide it until this lawsuit. So I think maybe it'll force a change to their policies, or people will be a little bit more aware of sort of the consequences of crossplay when it comes to PlayStation. But I don't think it helps Sony to have this come out. What do you think?
No, and again, I feel like this generation with the new PS5 and the Xbox Series, I think with everything that Microsoft built by the end of the last generation, with everything that they've put into play, I think this console generation is going to really hurt Sony if they don't figure out something. And I think I really do believe that. I think if they can figure out how to do some of the things that Microsoft's doing, then they'll have a chance. I think Nintendo is going to have to put themselves in the same boat, because if Nintendo can't get out some of their core first-party titles that they've been talking about, like, there's supposed to be a sequel to Breath of the Wild, right? There's supposed to be Metroid Prime 4 or whatever it is. Like, these things that they've talked about and they've announced, and of course we've heard some horror stories about how Prime 4 had to get completely scrubbed and they had to start all over again. But like, we haven't heard anything new from these games. So if Nintendo can't really get themselves to a place where they're starting to put out more than what they've already got, they're going to be in trouble. And I think Microsoft is doing all of this great work by cutting these prices, by getting more people to develop games, by buying up Bethesda and all of the ZeniMax crap. Like, holy crap. By the fact that by the fact that Epic is getting some exclusive deals from games that used to be exclusive to only Sony. And by that, I mean the Kingdom Hearts series. You can buy the Kingdom Hearts series on PC now. Like, why do I need a PlayStation for that? Or why do I need a PlayStation to play Horizon Zero Dawn or Death Stranding? I can get those on Steam now. So
yeah,
I think Sony's going to be real. I mean, they're coming out with a new, was it Ratchet and Clank or right?
Yeah, Ratchet and Clank,
which looks fantastic. They're coming out with another Horizon. They're coming out with, apparently there's another God of War being worked on. So they have, and another Spider-Man. So they have a few of these games that are going to be great, but there's less and less and less that is just for them. And there's more and more opportunity. Like I said, Game Pass Ultimate is the best deal in gaming to buy, bar none, right now. I mean, and it's obnoxious what you get with that. So, and it just keeps getting better. So, I mean, if you have an Xbox or even if you have a PC, like, and if you have both, like, good night. And that's not to say that I don't like these PlayStation games. I think they're great games. Like, they've got some great exclusives, those that they still have left. But if they're going to survive and thrive, they're going to have to change their practices. They're going to have to figure out something else. They're going to have to, I think what they need to do, in Nintendo as well, they need to open up their catalog. If anything, they need to come up with some kind of equivalent to compete. Because even Phil Spencer, and I've talked about this ad nauseum before, their competition's no longer Sony or Nintendo. It's about ecosystem. And Sony and Nintendo don't have the ecosystems to keep up. They have the games. They've got games, and those games are going to sell those consoles. But for how long? For how long are they going to be able to keep up with just their games when the ecosystems are what's taking over? Microsoft clearly is hitting pretty strong on that. So that's my soapbox answer to your question.
No, that's great, because I think I think there is a pattern with Sony specifically, and to a lesser extent Nintendo, of arrogance, right? They do really well in the marketplace, and they get complacent or they get arrogant. And Microsoft, I think, was guilty of this too with the end of the 360 era.
Yeah.
And they sort of forget that they have to be competitive, that they have to be a little bit hungry, that they have to earn the gamers' love, and they get greedy, for lack of a better term, right? And this is not unheard of in other spaces. Like I've talked before about how WoW ruined Blizzard. Even
Unfortunately,
without
unfortunately.
Well, I agreed, but I'm saying even without Activision's influence, I think Activision made it worse or accelerated it. But Blizzard got addicted to monthly revenue, and they were tired of worrying about, we better ship this game, that tension between we better ship the game so we can get the money to come in, or we want to finish the game and polish it to our standards, right? That was always a tension.
I think that's exactly what's also happened with Valve. They were like, wow, we're making a lot of money as a storefront. We don't have to make games anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I don't know. I just feel like Sony, and I don't feel as strongly about Nintendo as you do. I think that they're at least getting to a better place with the Switch, but I also understand, the reluctance to buy into the Switch ecosystem at this point, given the history. All of that said, we are in a spot where I think we are, how do I put it? I think that we are going to see Sony in particular have a real hard time when the next gen consoles are no longer supply constrained. People are going to have had several months now to see the things that Microsoft is doing and the things that Sony's not. Like I'm thinking of Sony does not allow refunds the same way Steam and Microsoft do for up to 2 hours played or 2 weeks. Sony does not have a clear date when they're going to support additional storage on the PS5 through of the fast storage that you need for the next gen games. Sony has really pushed PlayStation Now as much as they've pushed anything, I guess, but it doesn't compete with Ultimate, and yet it costs almost as much between PlayStation Now. So where does that leave them? It leaves them squarely in second place, I think, unless they make some changes. But we'll see. They've got a lot of brand strength there. So
my final thought about Sony is when we talk about ecosystems, if they were to put out something equivalent to Game Pass but for Sony, I think that they could get real competitive real fast, because if they could put out some like a PlayStation Ultimate, like for example, like a PS Ultimate, similar to Game Pass Ultimate. And it has the same kind of things where it's just like, here's a handful of games that are both, console and PC. These you can only play on PC. These you can only play on the console. You can stream it, or not necessarily stream it, but like, you have that full library of all that, I really do think, and they put it at a similar price point, and I think they need to combine PlayStation Now and PlayStation Plus into one product, sell it for $15, and make it work on the PC, and you're going to have people buying it.
Yeah. That would be very appealing for people. Absolutely. I just don't know if they have the ability to do that given the business terms that they want from their gaming property.
Irony's a bitch, right? So I mean, they could use Azure. They could use Azure, or
Yeah.
they could use AWS. Like, I mean, these.
Well, that's an interesting point, though. Part of the problem that Sony has is they are not a tech company, right? Not anymore. I mean,
not like they used to be, right?
Not like they were in the 90s or in the 80s. Like they're not as big of a consumer electronics maker. They own some entertainment stuff in the movie industry and all that, but Microsoft is absolutely a technology company, and with Azure, they have a huge advantage because they're paying, cost for all of the data center space, all the network, and they share that infrastructure across a bunch of different businesses that are profitable on their own, Office 365 and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, I think Sony's going to have a tough time. It'll be really interesting to see, the next year, like how things go, especially as vaccines become more widely available for COVID and people are starting to get out more. Is anyone going to want to stay home and play video games? Maybe we'll have 6 months where everybody's just outside doing stuff. I don't know. It's going to be fascinating to watch.
Outside, like in Ready Player One on their VR Oculus Quests, like running around. Yeah.
Well, we're going to have the VR headset on with the pass-through mode so you can see what's going on around you as you run around.
That's funny. That would be funny. That AR pass-through mode is actually pretty cool in the Quest 2. I was really impressed with that.
I use that as my background just because, like, between the kids and the dogs and whatever else, like, I want to know what's going on around me even while I'm in VR, so I can quickly switch out to it if I need to.
Well, we're still running our giveaway over on our Discord, so come on over to that, discord.otherworlds.gg. We get to 100 members here. We'll do some $25 gift card giveaways, so we'll be doing that. We also do our community game nights. We just spun up a new Stellaris session, so if anybody wants to come and play with us, we'll do some hot joins. You guys can pick an alien race and just jump on in the game with us. We'd love to have you guys come and join out, so come on out for that. And yeah, I think it's all fun and games here. I'm working currently on a merch store for OtherWorldsGG, so we can start having some merch. Because honestly, I love our branding and our logo. I want to get some shirts. So maybe like a fancy polo,
oh, well.
Wear it to work, that kind of thing.
Nice.
So that's something that's currently in the works. So getting a nice little merch store set up. So, but anyway, this has been episode number 18. We'll see you guys next time.
Yeehaw.